let's start with Oregon, Wisconsin. Oregon 21, Wisconsin 7, driving rainstorm, Grateful Ducks unis, Grateful Duck tie-dye, VW bug, whatever that was. Oregon's duck runs out or comes out of the tunnel riding on the side of that VW bug instead of the Doug Cokie Harley situation. That was cool. The crowd was into it. Dan's wearing the Grateful Duck sweatshirt. The game itself was very sloppy. Oregon was up 21-0. Wisconsin scores a late garbage time fourth quarter touchdown to make it 21-7. The original spread in this game was 31.5. Original over-under was 45.5. Obviously, the under clears with ease. Put that on my Substack. I thought the under was going to hit. Been cold lately, so it was nice to have a good winning weekend. Was pretty hot with my picks this weekend. Dan Lanning went off in postgame on the QB2 situation, and I just want to hit on that first and foremost. So, obviously, Dante Moore takes a forearm to the face. Might want to maybe get a visor for him or a bigger face mask, like the Kayvon Thibodeau-style face mask, because that Wisconsin linebacker unintentionally gets into his face and smacks him on the nose pretty easily with the forearm on a play where he's running. His nose gets super bloodied up. Looks like he may have broken it. Not sure. He comes out of the game. Lanning in postgame says he would have been fine to come back in. Dante's doing great, so it sounds like, by the way, Oregon has a bye this week. Sounds like for the November 8th game at Iowa, Dante Moore will be totally fine and good to go. But you wonder who the backup QB is. There was a massive competition in fall camp and in spring ball. We're all watching the spring game, all paying attention in fall camp. It's either Austin Novosad, the 4-star from Dripping Springs, been with the program for a couple years, from Dripping Springs right outside of Austin here where I'm at, or Dante Moore, former 5-star from Detroit, obviously played a little bit at UCLA, comes in, plays well, and he takes over the starting job. Oregon wins by 1 million against Oklahoma State, and then he really stamps himself as the starter with the win at Penn State. He was magnificent in that game, and you're like, all right, cool. Dante Moore's the starter. Austin Novosad's QB2. Or Brock Thomas, the Sheldon High walk-on, is QB2. Okay, let's dive into this a little more. Dan Lanning was asked, why was Brock Thomas the QB2 in this game? And here was his response.
Fans are still very much fretting about the backup quarterback situation, Dan. Just what aren't Austin or Luke doing, or what do they need?
Like, our backup quarterback went 4 for 4 tonight. We won the game.
You don't have to tell me. I'm just...
Well, then tell them. I mean, they should go to our locker room and see them carry Brock Thomas up in the locker room after the game. Like, our players see it every day in practice. When has Brock come in and not performed well for us this season? He's done what we've asked him to do every time he's come in. So people should stop worrying about it. And they should also know that those other quarterbacks are doing a really good job in practice too. But Brock's playing well, guys. Right? Watch the film.
Okay, Brock's playing well. Watch the film. He was 4 for 4. I liked how Lanning pointed that out. Kind of conveniently didn't mention that one of his passes literally hit a Wisconsin DB right in the hands. I mean, could not have hit him in the hands and the chest any better. And the guy drops it. It somehow shoots backwards. Again, this is the rain and the wind and the chaos that was the weather at Autzen Stadium on Saturday, and becomes a completed pass. That should have been an interception. Would have been an interception in clean conditions, although then you could say, well, maybe it would have been a better pass in clean conditions. Okay, here's the point. Dan was obviously very, very bothered by this, right? He snapped at the reporter multiple times. He's clearly kind of triggered by the QB2 situation. Let's dig into why he's triggered by the QB2 situation. So, Austin Novosad, highly ranked 4-star guy that I think a lot of Oregon fans would have been totally fine if he was the starter this year, is seen warming up on the sideline when Dante Moore, don't know if he breaks his nose, just takes that hard hit to the nose. There's blood everywhere. Again, Dan said he would have been fine to come back in, but he clearly makes the decision to bring in a backup, get Dante some rest. Probably wasn't seeing straight. May have not been a passing threat for the rest of the night if he was just his whereabouts were messed up after taking that nasty hit to the nose. And anyways, it sounds like he'll play in the Iowa game. But they bring in Brock Thomas, who's a walk-on from Sheldon. By the way, looks like a good dude. Obviously Lanning says he was carried off in the locker room, hoisted up in the locker room, and people, the players love and respect him, and he's been playing great in practice, and he comes in and plays well enough for Oregon to win the game. And that's great. And I'm sure he is a great guy. He seems smart, but he's clearly like physically, like, let's be honest, is he physically anywhere near as good as Austin Novosad? No. We've seen Austin Novosad play, and even Luke Moga, who's really fast and has a cannon of an arm. And by the way, Keely Smith Jr., true freshman, former high 4-star, some would say 5-star. Like, he would maybe be in front of him in the depth chart, but it did seem like Brock Thomas was QB 4 going into this season, right? You have Novosad and Moga behind Dante Moore, and Novosad on the heels of Dante Moore. Okay, so why on earth did Brock Thomas come in to play and not Austin Novosad? That is the key question here. In my opinion, if you look closely, Austin Novosad played in the Montana State game, but then he gets hurt, misses some time. I think people said he didn't travel to the Northwestern game, wasn't available for that game, and was available for this game and was seen warming up and playing, had the pads on and everything. Was warming up. The FS1 camera flashes to him when Dante gets hurt, but he didn't play. Okay, it's pretty clear to me. Here's the analysis part. It's pretty clear to me one of two things have happened. Number one, he told the coaching staff, I want to redshirt for the rest of this year, and he's already used his redshirt. Okay, he's already used his redshirt, but he can get a medical redshirt. And I think that's what he's trying to do, get a medical redshirt, or the coaching staff themselves, and maybe it was a joint decision, have said, hey, like you should try to get a medical redshirt this year because he can prove that he's been injured, and it would save him a year of eligibility. So he was injured earlier in this year. Don't remember exactly what the injury was, but he was unavailable for a period of time there, including games, didn't travel to Northwestern. So he's got a case to the NCAA to get a medical redshirt. He's only played in one game this year. It was total mop-up duty against Montana State. Where it gets tricky is if you're Lanning, you have to make that decision in real time, Lanning and Will Stein, the OC, and you say, okay, like how big of a threat is Wisconsin to us? Do we want to play Novosad and likely burn his red shirt that he's trying to earn right now? Or do we want to play Moga, or who might be getting a red shirt and you don't want to risk that? Or do we want to play Brock Thomas, the walk-on, QB4, and his red shirt doesn't matter as much? Don't know what his red shirt situation is, but his red shirt doesn't matter as much, obviously, as Novosad. You're trying to stay in good graces with Novosad, especially if Dante Moore leaves after this season. I don't think he will, but Mel Kiper Jr. has him as number 1 on his big board. It would be tempting. I think Dante will want to stay in college and get more reps and get more starts and get more prepared for the NFL. But if he leaves, you want to have a backup plan that's not just the portal. Like they could go get JKS from Cal in the portal, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, so the redshirt situation with Novosad. I personally think that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get him an extra year via the medical redshirt. Where it gets even more interesting, so Dan won't admit that, and the reason Dan won't admit that is because it sounds a little odd to say that, because essentially what you're saying is we're going to burn a walk-on's red shirt, or we're going to play a walk-on who doesn't matter as much in the grand scheme of the program, and that sounds weird and bad to say, but it's the kind of the truth. And also, do we want Novosad in our good graces? He wants to get this medical red shirt, and do we think Wisconsin's a threat to beat us, right? So where it gets even more interesting, and Dan's answer with that was no, by playing QB4, Brock Thomas, the walk-on from Sheldon. So where it gets even more interesting is what would happen if Oregon is down 10-0 at Iowa and Dante Moore gets banged up. That's a very real possibility. Iowa, by the way, looks like a very good team. They got another one of these dudes, Wet Gen. He kind of looks like Cooper DeJean 2.0, and that's a lofty comparison. But he returned a punt to the house in their last game against Minnesota. They were up 31-0 early second quarter against Minnesota, who's a decent team. That's a rivalry game. Floyd of Rosedale. 98-pound hog trophy made up by the Iowa and Minnesota Governors way back in the day. 98 pounds. And Iowa dominates. They were up 31-0 early in the second quarter, had a pick six and a punt return touchdown. That's a really tough game for Oregon in 2 weeks at Iowa. That's a really tough game. It's, Kinnick is a war zone. Then you got the Children's Hospital right there. You wave to the Children's Hospital going to the fourth quarter. It's in a truly elite defense. Like, that's a really tough game. So say Oregon gets down 10-0 at Iowa and Dante Moore has to go out for a series. Obviously, knock on wood, God forbid he doesn't, or gets hurt even more, has to maybe miss the game. Like, who is the backup QB in that game for Oregon? To me, it would be Austin Novosad. I think the coaches would love for it to be Austin Novosad. That is a question that they need to get answered probably before every game, but especially before every big game, such as the one against Iowa, where it's like, okay, if Dante's out and the game hangs in the balance, they don't even have to be trailing. Say the game just hangs in the balance. It's 7-all, or they're even up 10-0, but the game still very much hangs in the balance. Like, is Brock Thomas going in at QB, or is Austin Novosad going in at QB? My guess would be Novosad, but that is certainly a discussion that the coaches are having, and they're probably having with Austin. And you can tell that it's kind of an intense, awkward situation because Dan Lanning really snapped in the post-game press conference when asked about that. He said fans need to stop asking about our backup QB situation and just praise Brock. And by the way, shout out Brock Thomas, Sheldon grad, Sheldon pedigree, Justin Herbert, among others. The Ducks had another Sheldon backup. Should have looked this up. He played against Colorado a couple of years ago. Taylor something. Anyways, they've had great QBs there over the years, great players there over the years. Herbert's brother, Mitch Herbert, went on to play at Montana State. Obviously, Pat Herbert played tight end at Oregon for many years. They've had some really good players at Sheldon over the years. So shout out to Brock Thomas, prepared, came in, clearly knew what to do with the ball. Obviously, you get the trick play, big man touchdown pass. That was pretty cool. Nice celly there from the big man. But I just found that interesting. That was the most interesting part of the game. X's and O's wise, I thought Oregon did a good job of running the ball. Like I said, coming into the game, the best part about the Wisconsin team is their running defense. They have a good rushing defense. They held Ohio State to under 100 yards rushing. And in this game, when it was predictable as hell that you had to run the ball in order to play well, in order to move the ball, because passing the ball, I don't want to say wasn't an option, but was basically not an option in this game, at least passing the ball deep downfield with how insanely windy and rainy it was. Like, for people that just checked the box score, Dante Moore threw a 5-yard pass to DeCorian Moore in the end zone that drifted about 5 yards left on him. And Dante Moore's got a hose, right? That's how windy and rainy it was. Okay, Moore's final line, 9 of 15, 86 yards, no touchdowns, no picks before he gets knocked out of the game. Brock Thomas, 4 of 4, 46 yards and a touchdown. Hunter Simmons, bless his heart, the SIU transfer for Wisconsin, 7 of 21, 86 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Wisconsin finishes with 110 rushing yards. Oregon finishes with 45 carries for 203 and 2 touchdowns, 4.5 yards a carry. That's really good against that elite Wisconsin defense, in my opinion. Jordan Davison, the freshman, 16 carries, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. Noah Whittington, 14 carries, 97 yards. That Davison touchdown run was really impressive. Alex Harkey gets the double pancake on that play. And listen, Oregon knew that they were going to dominate this game. They're up 21-0. The game is not really in the balance, and so that's why they brought Brock Thomas in. I've seen a lot of people out there having Oregon ranked outside of the top 10 now, even at 7-1, just because they haven't looked elite lately. Although they did against Rutgers, but they didn't look elite against Wisconsin in the eyes of many. I just think it was a terrible weather game. By the way, Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5, Oregon 6, Ole Miss 7, Georgia Tech 8, Vandy 9, and BYU 10. Your new AP Top 25 there after the new rankings have come out. All right, that is your Duck segment. Got a couple other segments for you. Want to talk Arch Manning and Starkville. I want to give you a G5 update, and then we'll run through the AP Top 10 as well.